Hi, I'm Sylvia from NNC Creations, and today I'm going to show you how to make this little quilt. First of all, we're going to show you how to do the applique and do the design itself, and then I'm going to give you a little guideline on how to do the rest of it. So let's start. I've printed out a template so we get an idea how big the actual design is, and I'm using my 200 by 200 quilter's hoop, and I've drawn a line in the center. So we've got to line the fabric up with these lines, and what I do is I iron the fabric like that so we can line up the creases. So what I do is I position the fabric and line this line up with that, and I make sure this here lines up like so. So that's all right. See if that side is also okay. The crease lines up with that, and let's see if the bottom, and that's pretty accurate too. It doesn't matter if it's exactly right because you got a load of fabric to work with. So next I'm going to pin this. Make sure you go right near the edges. These pins aren't very sharp. Come on. So I've pinned it all neatly on the edges so you know the machine's not going to sew over them. You can also actually hoop it, but I never ever hoop anything. I like it better like that. For this particular pattern I've chosen a blue scheme, so these are the bits and pieces I'm going to be using, and some of this is going to be going right around the pattern when we finish doing it. So let's get going. The first thing it's going to do is the body outline. It's done the outline, the placement line for the body, and I've got my bit of fabric ready. And make sure you position it so it covers it. You can use heat and bond underneath it. I prefer not to, but if you do, obviously you got to do that now. I've changed the color thread only so you can see the outline, but at home you can just use the color thread. You're going to do the satin stitch within a minute. So now this is going to secure the fabric. Make sure the fabric stays nice and taut, no bubbles in it. To trim very closely to the stitched outline, and my machine has a trimming position, so we shall try to use that. Here we go. So what I do, I always lift the fabric up and really put the scissors really close to the stitch line, being careful not to cut it. It's all trimmed neatly, and now we're going to put it back to the stitch position, and it's going to do the satin outline. Now first it does a stitch around, as you can see. Now when it's done that, I usually stop the machine for a bit, and if you see any frayed bits, just trim them so the satin stitch will come out really neatly. So I'm just going to trim these little bits of frays. So I've gotten rid of all the little furry bits, so now we're going to do the satin line. It actually zigzags around it a bit, and then it starts the satin line out sort of right now. Finished doing the satin outline on the body, and now it's going to do the placement line for the feet. Get your little bit of fabric for the feet, place it over the placement line, and then it's going to secure the fabric. Make sure the fabric doesn't bubble. So that's done that, and we are going to place it back in the trimming position, and we're going to trim like we did the body right around here. Bit tricky by his paws here. So we're going back to the current stitch position again, and it's going to do the satin stitch. Well, first I'll outline it probably. We've done the satin line around the feet, and now it's going to do the ears. The outline for the ears, placement line for the ears. You can use little scraps of fabric, and that's what I've done, just cut little bits. It's good to use up any of your little bits of fabric, and we're going to place them here, and now it's going to secure the ears. Okay, and now we're going to trim it again. So I've trimmed it neatly around the stitch line. What I forgot to mention is when you place your bits of fabric, you can use the 505 spray. I hardly ever use that because I don't like clogging up my machine, and I just use my fingers, but it's probably safer if you do that. It's not going to do the satin outline. the ears done, and we're now going to do the outline for the face. Little polka dot face to match the rest of his body. So just place your fabric over the placement line, and the next color is going to secure it. So it's done the placement line, and I'm going to trim it now. I find if I hold this fabric tight, it cuts it neater and closer to the stitch line. I don't know whether it's my imagination, but it does it pretty good. Clip off any hairy bits. Okay, that looks pretty good, and now we're going to sew the satin line. His face done. We're now going to do his eyes and his whiskers and his mouth. We're now ready to do the nose, and he's going to get a nice little pink nose. So this completes the applique of the cat, and now we're going to do the writing underneath. It's now going to just embroider all the words, and I've done different color stock so you can use whatever colors you like. Here we are, all done, and now I'm going to show you how to make a wall hanging out of this. Right, it's all done and I've just laid it out here. I left the markings, the halfway markings in there. I haven't ironed it yet, which is going to be very helpful. Now this is a 12.5 inch by 12.5 inch quilt block. If you're lucky enough to have one of them, like I have, what you do is you mark it at 6¼ inches, and then you can trim around it, and then it'll be nice and even, it'll be dead center. But I'm sure most of you don't have that, so I will show you another way. Now the first thing you're going to have to figure out is how big you want this quilt block to be, and I personally would like it when it's finished to be about 12 inches square, so we have to cut it 12.5 inches because we leave 1/4 inch for the seam line. So what you do is you get your big ruler out, and this is the center, so we have to go 6¼ inches from here, which is 26¼ and we're going to cut it right there. This thing isn't all that sharp. So that's that side done. Now we got to go 6¼ inches on this side. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6¼ and you line that up. Oops. Almost put a new blade in here. Okay, so let's make sure there's half. So now we have to do the same on this side. 6¼ from here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6¼ So that's just about there. And the same here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6¼ Okay, that's all done. So we've got our bit of fabric all cut out to the size we want, and now you got to figure out what you are gonna put around it. So I thought we'd use a bit of this, and I've got some of this fabric which might look all right. You just have to sort of look to see what looks really good. I have a small piece and a wider piece, and do the binding with that. That's what we're going to do. You can cut it any width that you like. It doesn't matter. There's no rule really. I'm going to do this 1½ inches, and then I'm going to do this 2½ inches, and the binding I always do at 2½ inches. So I'm going to cut it now and show you. I've cut my strips. So the first ones are 1½ inches. That's going to go on here, and you have to make sure they are long enough to go around. So all these are long because it's only small, so you've got plenty of room. So you need 4 of them, and then I've cut this. It's 3 inches, and the reason I did that, it was 6 inches wide, so I didn't want to waste any. So that's going to go on there next. And then the binding is going to be, it's 2½, and I'm going to show you right now how to piece that nicely so you can't see the seams too well. Okay? Now for the binding, we're going to put all our strips together, and what you do is you have the right side facing up, and you put this bit like so, about 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to sew diagonally across there. Now I usually eyeball it, but what you can do is you can get your ruler, make sure it stays straight. And you can just draw a line where you're going to sew. I hope that drew, yeah, a little bit. You can also pin it, like so. So we're going to go to the sewing machine now and stitch it out like that. My thread got caught here. So you can see you got your thing, and you're going to do that for all your pieces. You can cut this bit like that. And then you go on to the next bit. And again, you line it up. Better eyeballing it than measuring it out. And that's the second bit. So you keep on doing that. Cut it again here. So first we're going to put the narrow strips on, and I got help here, you can see that. Put it, paws out of the way. And you just sew all the way down, 1/4 of an inch. I think he's a bit jealous of this cat here. Go straight to the end. And now what I do is I just cut that off, just line it all up nicely, and off it goes. And then we're going to start on this corner. Okay, we're going to cut that again. This is the third one. You sort of finger press it. I'm going to press it all in a minute. Line it up nicely. And off we go. And this is the last one. Okay, I'm just pressing it all flat. and the seams go outward. Okay, now we're going to put the other bit on it. We're now going to put the sashing on it, and we do that exactly the same way. So just line it up straight, and we're going to cut that bit off. So that's like that. Now we're going to put a piece on here, and on there. Again, just finger press this a little bit so it's flat. Line this up right in the corner and the top, and sew this bit on. Now we're going to piece it all together. So what you need is some wadding that is bigger than your piece of fabric that you're working on, and the backing. So we got some backing material, and we've got some wadding. And what we're going to do, we're going to use some 505 and spray, and then we're going to put the wadding on top. And really smooth it out. And then we're going to do it again, just do a little bit first. That's it. So now what we're going to do is go back to the machine, and we're going to stitch in the ditch, as it's called. You go inside these lines. If you want to do any fancy quilting around here, you can, but we're not going to do that because I don't know how to do that. So I'm going to go to the machine now. Okay, see that little red marker there? That's going to follow that line down. Now you turn it. And go down. And you do this all through. Right, now we got to trim all the edges evenly. So what I do is I line it up with the line here. And let's have a look. It's about 2.5 inches, I think. So that's one side, so we're going to do that side the same. So I'm just lining it up with that line here. Okay, and one more side. Okay, that's it. So we've done that, and now I'm gonna show you how to put the binding on. So this is the binding that we've pieced together, and what you have to do is press it in half. So I've got this already folded it in half and pressed it. Now you got to make sure this is going to go around, so we just measure it. It's long enough. I'm sure it is 4 times. Yeah, we got plenty. So what we're going to do now is we are going to sew this on, and we're going to leave about a 5-inch gap. You know, it doesn't have to be exact. So we start here, leave a little tail, and then we're going to go all the way around, and I'll show you how to do the corners. So don't forget to leave your little tail here. We're going to start here. And we go to about a 1/4 inch to the end. Okay. Now we're gonna fold this. So what you do now is fold it, make a 45-degree angle here, and then you bring that down, and we're gonna stitch it like so. And we're going to go right down the end again, and I'll show you again. Okay, a 1/4 inch. Oops. And again, we're going to make this little triangle, 45 degrees. And then put it straight like that. 1/4 inch. And off we go again. Right until a 1/4 inch, approximately. That's it. A 45-degree angle. No, I didn't go far enough, so it doesn't work. Go a bit further. Okay, this is the last one, 45-degree angle, and then fold it down. So it's like a little square now, or a rectangle. And then we leave about 5-inch gap here, so we're going to go stitch to about here. Okay, we have 2 bits hanging now, and what we're going to do is we're going to have about 3 inches here, and I'm going to cut it off, and then you're going to measure this here. I think this is a bit, let's leave a bit more room here. Right, this is where the join is, and you use this as a measuring. And you're going to cut it right here. And then we're going to have to make our fancy So we're going to have to, like I showed you before, how to do the same 1/4 inch. And we're going to go back to the sewing machine and sew it down like that. It's a bit difficult when you do a small thing. Okay, I'll just go to the machine and sew that. Right, so we're going to stitch from here to that corner there. And then we have to say our prayers that it works. So everybody start praying. So now you can see this fits, and what we're going to do is cut this. Always make sure it fits first, because you might have to adjust it a bit. And now we're just going to continue sewing it onto here. Okay. And here you can see when you turn it, you got lovely mitered corners. And now what you can do is you turn it over, and you can hand sew this. You can also machine stitch it, but I think it looks neater just hand sewing that, and it's all done. Right, I'm going to show you how to hand sew when you get to around the corners. And you literally just pick up a bit of fabric at the bottom and go like that, just slip stitch it, little stitches. And then when you get to the corner, you put it straight like that, and then you make a little angle again like that. Then you stitch it. and then you do it, stitch it all the way around and do the same thing for the next corner.